Hey, Travel with Magic here. Hey, today we are talking about some of the differences between Disney World and Disneyland, and hoping that maybe going through some prices of both places will help you have a better view of maybe which area you would prefer to go to. Some people maybe watching this video have never been to Disneyland, so I'm going to go over some options of what might work for going either to Florida or to California. So today I was thinking about the fact that a lot of people that come from the Midwest tend to flock to Florida because that's where Disney World is, and a lot of people end up going there versus California. Florida has 4 parks, California has 2, so I think people feel like if they're going to do their big Disney vacation, they might as well go to Florida. So there are a lot of differences between the 2 locations. Some of them probably you didn't even think of. So a lot of people say, well, I'm never going to go to Disneyland because it's a lot smaller and it only has 2 parks. But actually, it has a lot of magic there. Even though it has 2 parks, it's going to at least take you 3 days to get through Disneyland. You can go 2 days, but you're not going to be able to do what all you want to do there. Also, Disneyland's a place where if you happen to have hotel points, you can stay on like your Marriott points or your IHG points or Hilton points, because Disneyland is walkable from certain hotels that are on Harbor Boulevard, but there's also other streets and roads that go off of Harbor that you could possibly choose a hotel that's in a close location but maybe not directly on that road. So that's a difference between the 2 parks. I actually end up picking some dates in November to see the differences in the prices between both locations. So as I'm pulling up the prices between Disneyland and Disney World, so if you go to Disney World or Disneyland starting November 6th of this year, for example, and you have a family the size of mine, so it'd be like 2 adults and 1 kid that's between that 3 and 9-year-old age, that's considered a kid price. For Disneyland, it's going to cost you $1,220 for 5 days. So that would be if you end up doing maybe 3 days at Disneyland and 2 days at California Adventure, because they have 2 parks out there. But then I also pulled up Florida for the same amount of people, same age for our son and that 3 to 9-year-old kid price, and the price was $1,928.29. So you're talking an over $700 difference between Florida and California for a 5-day ticket, and that's a 1 park per day ticket, so it's not a park hopper. So there is a big difference in ticket prices, even though Disneyland you could do it in 3 days, or 2 if you really want to just do a little bit of it. Florida, you'd have 4 parks, so you'd go to all 4 parks one day, and then you'd pick 1 park to be able to go for the 5th day. But it's nice to have the 4 parks, but there actually are a lot of similarities between Disneyland's rides and Disney World's rides. And so between Disneyland Park and California Adventure Park, they have Star Wars, they've got Pixar, they've got a lot of the rides that Florida has. Now, Florida does have rides that California doesn't have, like Remy's Ratatouille and the Frozen Ever After ride. And there are a lot of different rides between the places, but if you're looking to do like Star Wars and Pixar and the Fantasyland rides, it's going to be a lot similar between both places. And Disneyland also is open longer hours. So Disneyland Park, when it opened, Walt wanted it to be open for a long time. So he wanted it to be open at least 8 a.m. and be open really late. So in the older commercials, they would have like that they're open till midnight. a lot of nights they still are open till midnight. So you have got 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. So you could go back to your hotel if you have one that you're walking to and from and come back. You could get up early, rope drop, leave for a little bit, take a nap, come back. You could end early if you want to. So you do have a lot of options, whereas in Florida, there is no hotel that you can stay at between any of the 4 parks that will get you walking distance or transportation that's easy, like a monorail or a Skyliner, to all 4 parks. So there are some parks, even if you stay on property in Florida, that you will have to take a bus, which means you have to fold your stroller up. So maybe that's not a big deal for you. I really do like both locations. Florida, I love going in there in the off season. January or February is like an awesome time to go weather-wise. California it's hot, but it doesn't have a ton of humidity. So it is nice that most of the time when you go in California, you don't have to deal with it being really humid. It's just, they are so different. But it's interesting that if you've never been to California, you should really try it out and see if it could be somewhere that would be easy to get around. And really the parks are right across from each other. You can literally stand between the two. And so you can walk between the two if you were to get a park hopper. Downtown Disney's right there too. There is a difference too. If you stay on property in California, the hotels are pretty pricey. They've got 3 Disneyland hotels versus Florida has a lot. But you do have to pay to park on their property if you stay there. Also, parking is something to figure in for whether you're in Florida or California. California, it would be, you'd have to pay for parking unless you're walking to the park from an off-site hotel. And then Florida, you'd have to pay for parking if you're not staying on property. So that's an extra expense to think about. And Disneyland only has 4 character experience meals. So Disney World has a lot of those. So there are differences between the two. I really do enjoy going to both of them, and they can be very different in so many ways. Some of the rides that you ride at both locations, you would think they would be the same, but they're actually different. For example, Space Mountain, you're one in front of another in Florida, but then in California you can have like 2 of you sitting next to each other. When I go out to California, it is pretty pricey to stay in a hotel out there, but being able to use hotel points really does help out. From the Midwest, it is easier to fly to Florida. Flying to California, you can use a couple different airports. Some of them aren't direct flights. Some of the airlines don't do direct flights either. Like John Wayne is the closest, it's 15 minutes from Disneyland. Some airlines do fly there. Long Beach is another one that would work, or Santa Barbara or LAX. So you can kind of decide when you pick an airline or using airline points, which one could possibly benefit you more. So anyway, thank you for tuning in for all that time, and as always, thank you for subscribing to Travel with Magic. Check out my other videos, and stay tuned for maybe some new adventures that we go on, and as always, thank you so much for subscribing.